I started to contemplate suicide. She walks through the laundry room and takes that right into the garage. And she turns the corner and finds his body. Kidnapped me, put me in the back of a minivan, and drove away. They were like, we're not going to tell you anything until we get closer to where we're going. Ugh, this is hard to talk about. This is really hard to talk about. Hi, welcome to Comfy Clothes in Christ, the podcast where we get in our comfy clothes and talk about all things Jesus. I'm your host, Alyssa, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about my testimony. And it's a long one. So get your comfy clothes on, buckle up, grab a snack, grab a drink, get comfy, because we got a lot to talk about today. And before we get into it, I just want to talk about what I'm wearing. I'm wearing comfort clothing, which I thought was so fitting for this first episode. I'm wearing comfort clothing's silver white camo. Not 100% sure what it is. No, it's not sponsored. So that's the camo that I'm wearing, and then the halter top that I'm wearing underneath that is the white halter tank top with a built-in bra by Honor Active. So that's what I'm wearing. It's super comfy, and then I got these little white fuzzy socks off of Amazon, and let's ignore the fact that they're dirty for everybody watching. Thank you. Anyway, so we'll just get into my testimony. So I grew up in a Christian household, and we did go to church. I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. I didn't understand the purpose of church. I didn't know Jesus. I knew of Jesus, and I always just felt like God was just some faraway deity who just ruled the world, and that was that. I really didn't know anything more about His grace, His mercy, His love, His kindness, none of that. I did not know Jesus. I knew of Jesus. And so as I continued growing up, around the age of 10, we stopped going to church. I was actually okay with it. I did not care. I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know God. So I was like, cool. I don't have to go anymore. That's great, because I would be in the kids' rooms and I didn't know anybody in the rooms. I didn't really care to make friends. I was always one of those awkward kids too that had a really hard time making friends anyway. And so once we had fallen away from the church as a family, people typically start backsliding when they leave the church. And that's exactly what happened in my family. My father started backsliding. He was very big in the church when my parents first got married. He was serving. He was doing stuff with like the band and sound production and the cameras or whatever. But he was big in the church when my parents got married, and then just something happened where one of the pastors left or something happened. I don't know the full details, but he got church hurt, and so he just didn't want to go anymore. And so we tried to go back. Once we started going back, he didn't really want to come with us either way. So once my mom and I had left the church, things started to get really bad in our house. I didn't see the love of Jesus modeled at all. We didn't talk about Jesus. We didn't pray before meals. We didn't do any of that. And so I was just like, okay, whatever. I just was a Christian by mouth. I said I believed in Jesus, but I didn't know Jesus. I didn't really know what Jesus did for us. I didn't understand that Jesus was God in a bod, and I didn't understand the triune of God and any of that. I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. And so because of that, and that it wasn't modeled, I didn't have a foundation. I didn't have a foundation that I was built on. And so my dad started drinking really heavily around the same time that we stopped going to church. And I think it was pretty secret at first, and then the more it continued, the more that we started to see it in the light. And there were multiple days that I would see my dad drunk. I would constantly see my dad drunk. He would come home from work and he'd get drunk, and you could smell it on his breath and all these different things where it was just really rough. So once my dad started drinking a lot more, there was obviously a lot of anger in my household. I don't know any alcoholic that typically isn't a raging one. And so there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of mental abuse. There was a lot of mental torment in my house, where my dad would get 2 inches away from my face and be screaming in my face and calling me names. And I just started to believe that I wasn't good enough. I really started to hold on to that belief of that I wasn't good enough. and that no matter what I did would never be enough, and I was stupid, and that nobody loved me, and just all these different beliefs about myself that I now know was the enemy trying to lie to me and continue to get me to stay away from Jesus. It continued to get worse. Because I started feeling these ways about myself, I started to contemplate suicide. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. People don't love me anyway. Like, it wouldn't matter if I had left. Like, it's cool. People don't need me. People don't like me. People don't want me. So I might as well just end it all, right? That's just the enemy continuing to lie to me. With everything that was going on in my life, he saw it as I was already weak. I was already down on my knees. I was already kicked in the back. Like, I was just down bad. And when you're already in a moment of weakness, the enemy really comes in and sneaks in even more. And so my dad was in weakness. My dad was broken. I was broken. My mom was broken. Our whole household was broken. And we were just really struggling. And like, looking back on it now, it just really felt like there was a dark cloud that just lingered over our house. And we were just constantly tormented in like this mental torment. And so as my dad continued to drink, at the age of 13, there was just one night that was really bad. My parents had just gotten into it. They got into a huge argument over something really stupid, and I think it was over the fact that my dad was drinking. And so my mom and I took our 2 dogs to walk up to the grocery store, which was right around the corner from our house. So we walked up to the grocery store with our 2 dogs, and as we were walking up there, we see my dad fly by in his BMW. And so my mom looks at him and makes like this hand gesture. And for everybody just listening, it was like a drinking hand gesture. Like, oh, you're going to go drink. You're going to go to the liquor store, because the liquor store was right next door. And so that's exactly where he went. He did go to the liquor store. He bought a whole handle of Sky vodka and a whole handle of Fireball whiskey and drank half of both. So he drank almost a full handle that night. He was extremely drunk. He was just acting so off. Like, I would go in and talk to him, and he was slurring his words, and he just wanted nothing to do with me and was pretty quiet towards me. And you could really just tell that he was in his head. And so there was supposed to be this meeting that happened the next morning at my school for a conversation with parents about a trip to Spain and France for the students that were taking a foreign language. We were supposed to go on a trip for anybody's family who could afford it and see if that's something that they wanted to do so that we could practice using our French and our Spanish, I guess, right? And so I go in to my dad's office and I ask him, hey, do you want to go to this meeting tomorrow, or should I ask mom? He's like, ask your mom to do it. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go upstairs. It's late at this point. I'm just a ball of anxiety, and I just feel like something's off. Something's wrong. Something's going on. But I can't explain it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm already just an anxious person. Like, I'm in therapy at this point for being suicidal. Like, I have anxiety. I have depression. I'm just dealing with this stupid stuff at home and just feeling like my life is falling apart. So it wasn't super out of the ordinary that I was feeling anxious. But this night it was worse than usual. So I tried to go upstairs. I tried to go to bed, and at this point my dad was in the garage. And to paint the picture, my bedroom is right above my dad's side of the garage. And so I was hearing all of this noise from down below. And I was like, what is going on? It sounded like he was pulling on something on the ceiling. I was like, what is going on? Like, it's so loud. And he had power tools out there because he was pretty handy. He could fix pretty much anything. And I was like, okay, that sounds like there's tools going on. Like, stuff is moving, rustling, being pulled on. Anyway, so I'm in my room and I'm hearing all this going on. I'm like, okay, now I definitely can't sleep, because there's something going on down below me and I can't sleep. I'm already anxious. I could tell my dad's having a bad night. My mom was having a bad night. I was having a bad night. They had gotten into it. He went to the liquor store. He was super drunk. I was super anxious. It was just a lot. And so I walk from my bedroom downstairs into the garage, and let me paint the picture. If you go into my garage, you go through the laundry room. And if you go straight through the laundry room door and open the door into the garage, you can see my mom's side And if you go down the 2 stairs and turn right, then there's my dad's side. It's like a L, kind of. And so if you go into my mom's side, you just see everything clear as day when you open the door, and then you have to go around the corner to see to my dad's side. And immediately on the left of those 2 stairs, as you're walking down, there's a refrigerator, fridge freezer. And in the refrigerator, we would keep bottles of water, like plastic bottles of water. And so I went to go grab a water bottle before I went upstairs to go to bed. And as I was going into the garage, I don't think my dad heard me open the door, but I went down the 2 stairs, and I turned my full body left to open up the refrigerator and grab the water bottle off of the door of the fridge. And he saw me from where he was sitting, and he was sitting in his car. And I heard the doors locked. And I immediately ran inside because it was weird. Like that, I just was overwhelmed with anxiety. I was so afraid. And I was very scared. So I ran upstairs and I went into my mom's room. I'm like, hey, can I sleep in here tonight? Like, I can't sleep. Like, there's just a lot going on. Can I just stay in here? And so she said, yeah, and pulled me closer to her side of the bed so that if my dad decided to come upstairs, that he would have room to sleep and I wouldn't be in the way and like make him more angry, right? So around 1:30, I'm sleeping in the middle of the bed, and my mom goes outside to take my dad a blanket because she just assumed that he was mad and fell asleep in the car. And so she goes outside. She walks through the laundry room and takes that right into the garage. And she turns the corner and finds his body, and his feet were dangling off the floor. So I'm sure you can imagine what happened. And she runs back inside, runs upstairs, and as this is happening, I'm still asleep. I hear sirens coming from my mom's window. It's like cracked open maybe 1.5 inches. And so I hear the sirens outside, and I'm like, oh, it's super early. That sucks. I hope that person's okay. I vividly remember thinking that. And I'm like, I didn't know that that person was my dad. So I rolled over. Not 10 seconds later, that door flies open to her bedroom. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. He's dead. He's gone. He's gone. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what is going on? What the freak is happening, right? And she's like, Mark killed himself. Your dad killed himself. He's gone. And immediately I start weeping, sobbing, panting, out of breath, can't breathe, internally panicking, feeling like the room is closing in on me. The tears were so hot dripping down my face, and it was a lot of them to the point where I felt like I was going to drown in my own tears. And I was just at a loss for words. I had no idea what to do. I had no idea what to say. Little 13-year-old me who was so innocent and so sheltered and now so broken. My entire world had shattered. And so the police are at my house. There's like 8 cop cars, 2 ambulance, and a fire truck outside of my house. Just a ton of flashing red and blue lights. A ton of different emergency service personnel inside and outside of my house going in and out. And there was an officer standing in front of our laundry room door to make sure that I could not go into the garage. And there was 2 victims advocates who came, 2 women who came who were volunteers. And they just came in to support the victims while the trained professionals were dealing with a crime scene. And I hate saying crime scene like it was something that we were involved in, but that's what it was. And so they had a detective come in. The detective came in and the coroner came in. The coroner had to examine my father and declare that it was actually suicide and not like an assisted suicide and wasn't murder, right? And so while that was going on, the detective came in and sat me down at the kitchen table, and it was still dark outside. We flipped on the overhead chandelier light, and it was just this one dim white LED light bulb, right? So it's completely dark, and there's just this one light, and it literally feels like those movies where they're in that interrogation room with the metal table, and it has like this eerie white light feeling. That's exactly how it felt in my house, in my kitchen. And so they sat me down and they asked me questions like, what happened? What do you know? What do you remember? What was going on the night before? And I just answered it like I was. And I don't even remember fully what I said, what was asked or anything like that, because I was still just in shock from what was going on, that I genuinely had no idea what had fully happened. And so my mom, after she had called 911 and the emergency services showed up, she started calling my family. Her sister and her brother-in-law was still in town. And then my aunt lives here. She lives in Colorado too. And so she came and hung out with me and picked me up. And it was at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning at this point. She picked me up and she took me to her ex-husband's house, which is my uncle. And my cousins were both with him that night. And so they moved my cousin out of her bed and let me sleep in her room so I could try to get some sort of sleep. And she woke up in her dad's bed and she's like, what the heck? Like, how did I get here? I don't, like, what's going on? And then she goes downstairs and she sees both of her parents together. And she's like, oh, something's really going on because you guys don't like each other. Like, why are you guys just chilling, hanging out, right? So her brother wakes up, or they go and wake him up. I'm not 100% sure. And they explain what happened. And I think shortly after I woke up and I was just having a really bad morning. I did not sleep well. Obviously, my dad had just died. I was still in shock. I still had no idea what was going on. And so my aunt tried to distract me as much as possible and took me to a trampoline park with my cousins, took me to go get ice cream and like all these different things to try to keep me busy and just distracted. And we went back to their house. We're just hanging out. I think I slept there one more night. I don't think that I went home that night, just to kind of keep me away from everything that just happened. After that, the rest of that year was a blur. Don't remember a lot of what happened. I know the first 3 months after my dad passed away, I didn't go to school. I didn't do any sort of school. Within that time, we had the memorial service. He was cremated. Just a bunch of different, typical things that you have to do after somebody passes away. I don't go to school. That year is pretty much coming to an end anyway. I didn't finish any of my assignments. My grades were suffering really bad, but whatever, it was middle school. It didn't really matter. So 8th grade rolls around, and I'm still obviously going through it. I'm still going through some stuff. I didn't really fully understand still what had caused all of this, and I was just trying to process everything that had just happened and figure out how to find friends and find my way through school. And so I did start kind of hanging around the people who were, doing some dumb stuff and vaping and all those things. And then this one girl is actively self-harming, and I was exposed to self-harm. And she explained to me why she did it and how she does it and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know why she told me that, but she did. So over the next little while, I had started thinking about it. I was like, okay, like, maybe it works. And so I started self-harming. And it was not often at this point. It was just few and far between. So as I'm going through middle school, I get diagnosed with depression, ADHD, and anxiety. So I'm given medication for it, and I'm taking them like I should. I don't remember most of 8th grade year, other than the fact that my mom's dad, my dad's dad, and my dad's mom had all passed away within that 8th grade year. So on top of losing my dad, I lost 3 of my grandparents within the same year. And it was just so horrible going through that much loss in such a short amount of time. And so as I'm going through 8th grade year, I'm depressed. I'm, taking these medications. I'm losing more people. And then I go through the summer. I don't remember much of the summer. And freshman year rolls around. So I'm now a freshman in high school. And the first day, I immediately get involved with the wrong crowd. Like, immediately. Day one, I'm involved with the wrong people. I made friends with the wrong people. And it was cool. It was cool at the time. And I had to feel like I constantly felt like I needed to do anything and everything to fit in. No matter what it was, I was just doing it to fit in and feel good about myself. And so this was the group of kids that, was constantly using, constantly trying to hook up with people. And, there was just a lot of poor behaviors for 14, 15-year-olds, right? And so I was in this group where it was very acceptable to dress very scantily, like the most cropped crop tops and the shortest of shorts, and just showing as much skin as possible and just looking for that male validation. We were vaping, we were smoking, we were drinking, and I was the one kid in the group that was also abusing my pills. So at this point, I had started abusing my medication. And I was also the kid in the group that it was like, you needed something, I would figure out how to get it for you. So I was, lack of better words, like the friend group drug dealer. And I say that lightly because I wasn't really a drug dealer. But if you needed a vape, I knew how to get it and I knew where to get it for you. So you give me the money, I'd go get you your stuff, whatever. You needed the X, Y, and Z, I'd figure out how to get it and get it to you. So I was the catalyst for a lot of other people's suffering and their downfall. And this one girl I got super close with, and she was big into self-harm. And I was like, cool, I've done this before, like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal, right? So I continued to self-harm more, and at this point it was daily. So like every single day, all the time. And mind you, with the clothing that I was wearing, it was like really questionable that I was hurting myself that much and wearing super short clothes, because I was not trying to hide it at all. You know those like videos where you see somebody sitting in the class and they like pull down their sleeve because you can kind of see like the self-harm on their arms or the cuts on their arms or whatever. So I was that kid that would sit in the back of the class and you'd be able to see kind of everything. You'd be able to see everything. And I was not at all hiding it. I was wearing like the darkest of black eyeliner. I was wearing, like, you could just tell that I was very depressed. I looked like one of those kids that was very, very tormented mentally. And that's exactly what was going on. I had a lot of demons. And in those moments of weakness after my dad had passed away and I started searching for ways out of the pain that I was going through, I just found more ways to dig myself into a deeper hole. And so that's what happened. Now with the self-harm and the pills and the drug use and smoking and drinking and partying with my friend group and all of these different things, I started looking for male attention. And I think it was very obvious that I was already looking for male attention anyway with the way that I was dressing. And so I met up with this one guy, and I snuck out of my house at 14, about to turn 15. I snuck out of my house with this one guy. I'd never kissed anybody before. I had never done anything sexual. And I got assaulted. I got sexually assaulted for the very first time. And it was awful. I was definitely taken advantage of. I was very, very hurt. Physically, I was in so much pain from what had happened. I couldn't walk correctly. I couldn't think straight. And so now that I had just been taken advantage of and used, I, of course, started self-harming more. I started using more drugs. I started mixing the pills and the alcohol. And I was just constantly in a state of inebriation, I guess is the word. I was just constantly under the influence of something. And that's how I coped. That's really how I coped. And it felt so good at the time to just cope like that, because I was escaping. I was running away. And that's what I needed at the time. I needed to run away from everything that was going on. And I didn't know Jesus, so I didn't know to run to Jesus. And so things continue. My mom is starting to see more and more signs that I'm struggling. I drop out of high school and start taking online classes. And I'm not actually doing school. I'm like hanging out with people while she's at work and not actually doing schoolwork or whatever. So she takes me out to dinner on Thanksgiving at this restaurant. And then the day after, we go Black Friday shopping. And I did not know my mom was a prayer warrior at the time, but she was. And I think that losing my dad brought her closer to God. Because during this time, she had prayed. She said, God, give me 3 very clear signs that I need to send her away and get her serious help. And the third one, I don't know what the first 2 were. The third one was, I got caught shoplifting by my mother. She took me Black Friday shopping. I stole over $1,000 worth of merchandise and called my friend and bragged about it. I was like, yeah, I stole X, Y, and Z and this, that, and the third. And my mom was home. She heard everything. She heard me talking about it. And that was it. That was the last straw. So that next morning at 2 a.m., there were 2 people who showed up at my house, stood at the end of my mom's bed where I was sleeping, and professionally kidnapped me. And I'm not kidding when I tell you that. I got up out of the bed, I put on some sweatpants and a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. I don't even fully remember at this point. I think it was a hoodie or a jacket. Yeah, it was a jacket from this one guy that I was like really talking to and really liked at the time. And so I had this jacket and these sweatpants, and I got in the back, or I got up and I grabbed a blanket, and these 2 people put my arms behind my back and had one arm in each one of them had one of my arms, dragged me down the stairs and put me in the back of a minivan and drove away. And it was terrifying. They were like, we're not going to tell you anything until we get to closer to where we're going. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. This is crazy. I'm literally being kidnapped. Like, what is going on? So, yeah, they didn't tell me anything at all. They didn't tell me anything until, no, they didn't even tell me anything when I got there. So, they had drove 10-ish hours from where I'm living, or where I was living, to Durango, Colorado, which was like a 10-hour drive. There was also some snow because it was in November, right day after Black Friday. So it was in November. I got sent to this wilderness therapy program, and they stopped for breakfast. We had breakfast. I was also struggling with an eating disorder because I was on all the drugs. I just wasn't really eating. So I got food. I didn't really eat much of it. And then they take me to this office building and they drop me off. And this woman comes out and she takes me inside, and she's like explaining kind of what's going to happen and what's going on. And she's like, okay, well, this is what it is. We're a wilderness therapy program. You're going to be backpacking for the next 3 months or however long that you're meant to be here. You're going to be with a group of girls. You're all going to be working together as a team to do all of these different things. I'm like, where the heck am I? Like, I don't want to be here. What do you mean backpacking through the Utah desert in the middle of winter? What do you mean by that? Because that sounds horrible. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Please no. And so, this is hard to talk about. This is really hard to talk about. So I go in and I get stripped down to nothing. And they put me behind a curtain, strip me down to nothing. I have to squat and cough to make sure I don't have any drugs on me. And then I am given top and bottom thin base layer, and then top and bottom thicker base layer, and then a quarter zip jacket, cargo pants, and a puffer coat with 4 pairs of socks, a pair of hiking boots, a sleeping bag, and like a bag full of food. And it was a lot of food. It was a decent amount of food for a week. And it had like a block of cheese, like a whole brick of cheese. It had like trail mix, a bunch of like nuts and fruits mixed together. It had a bag of oats. It had tortillas and peanut butter with like 3 or 4 packs of tuna. So that's what we got to eat through the week for like lunch and stuff. And then they had, or that was like breakfast and lunch. And then they had other foods that we would carry, our staff would carry for like dinner, right? And so, yeah, I got thrown in the middle of the desert. I was backpacking. They had my sleeping bag and my food and everything rolled up inside of this gray tarp. And we had to learn all these different knots and things because we would tie up this tarp with all of our stuff in it with parachute cord. And we had to learn all these specific knots and tie it a specific way. And then they would take cut seatbelt straps and weave it through the parachute cord that we had tied up around this tarp. And that was that. We had to carry a backpack like that, and it was like 70 pounds. And it was not very stable because a lot of times when you were new, it would fall apart. And so I went through that for like 3 months. But this is where things really started to change and really started to happen for me. This was where I was exposed to witchcraft. This was where I was exposed to demonic rituals. This was where I was exposed to sage, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was witchcraft, and we were doing like seances and stuff like that, and I had no idea because we had 4 levels and we would call out to the directions northeast, southwest, right? So you'd go in at south and then you'd go to west, east, and north. That was the order of the directions. North was the highest, south is where you came in. And so we just continued to go through the directions. I got up to east. I never got up to highest level. But every time that we would get up to the highest level, they would burn sage, and they would sage us and speak over us as they were doing that. I smudge your eyes to see the truth. I smudge your ears to hear the truth. I try to smudge your mouth to speak the truth. I smudge your arms for the load they carry, and I smudge your legs for the journey that they take you on. And then we'd end it by saying a hoe. I still have no idea what that means, but that's what we would say. After that, as I went through that program, I did end up graduating, and I was immediately sent to a residential treatment center. And if you don't know what a residential treatment center is, it's like a grippy stock vacation, but for multiple months. So I ended up living at that RTC for 16 months. And at first it was okay, and then this one girl came in, and I developed a bad relationship with her, and she was just really toxic, and it was just really bad, and we were just bad for each other. But of course we were in treatment, so it was like a bunch of mentally ill kids, right? And so this is where the spirituality and the witchcraft really took over. I started using tarot cards. I started playing with Ouija boards. I was introduced to Satanism. There were students who had like Satanism books. One of the students had a book about Wicca. They had a book about paganism. There was just like a bunch of different demonic books that would explain the rituals and all these different things. And I really got into it. And there was a piece of me that was like, I don't think God would like that. But mind you, I still didn't know Jesus. I knew of Jesus, but I did not know Jesus. I did not know how to pray. I did not know how to talk to God. I didn't know any of that. And so my curiosity got the best of me. And somebody did a reading on me, and it was extremely scarily accurate. And I was like, whoa, like this stuff is real. And so I continued to practice. I borrowed their cards, and I was practicing with their cards, and I had no idea how detrimental that was, because you're not supposed to practice with other people's cards and the energy in that. And there's just like, it's just so stupid because I had no idea what I was doing, but I got locked in. I got consumed by it, and I wanted to learn more. I wanted to know more. I wanted to do it all the time. And so I was doing readings on other people all the time. I was doing readings on myself all the time, which is a new witch you're not really shouldn't be doing. But anyway, yeah, I became a full-blown witch, and I was learning more and more about it, and I was finding more and more interest in it, and continued to practice after I had left. And so once I had left, I graduated in June of 2020. So this was during the time of COVID now. I got sent to treatment in November of 2018, graduated in June of 2020, from the residential treatment center. And then I went throughout my summer. Things were cool, whatever. Like, I was just chilling. Didn't really do much of anything. It was just kind of at home. I had lost all of my friends from high school, obviously, because I didn't need to be around those people anymore. So all of those relationships were gone. I had one friend from middle school still, and I'm still friends with her till this day. And so I saw her every once in a while, but she was friends with one of the girls from my old friend group, and I was like, okay, like, I can't really be friends with you anymore. Like, this is just kind of how it is right now. And so I took that summer, and I was just hanging out, whatever, and I downloaded this app that was like Tinder, but it was marketed towards kids for people under 18. And so I met my ex-boyfriend on that app, and we became very close very quickly. I was now in junior year of high school at this point. I was in what is it called? It's like a school for bad kids, where all those kids would go for, like, if they were on like probation or had been to RTCs and treatment and things like that. It was one of those types of schools, and I don't remember what they're called, but anyway, so I get into this relationship, and things are really good at first. They're like really okay at first. And so as time goes on, we both are like, oh, well, like, let's get into the modeling industry. Let's get into the acting industry. And so we did. I got accepted first. I went through the trainings, and then I got trained, and I immediately started working. Like, my look was just very sought after. I'm 5'11", super skinny, like, always have just been like this, like, supermodel vibe, right? And so my work started to pick up pretty quickly, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but that's a very rough industry to be in, and it's very, very toxic, and it's just full of witchcraft and all these different things. But it was cool because I was already practicing that, so I already fit in. Like, it didn't matter. I was already doing some crazy stuff anyway. And so my ex-boyfriend gets into the side of the acting industry again. I still don't know Jesus at this point. And so I'm heavily practicing witchcraft. I'm manifesting. I'm like doing X, Y, and Z, and it's starting to work. The manifestation is starting to work, and I'm starting to do more spells and things to kind of get what I wanted, you know. And it's just like, I was just doing dumb stuff, and I was like saging my house and like speaking over my house, not realizing that I was actually doing like ritualistic behaviors. And so I'm just starting to get what I want. I'm starting to work more. I was invited to go out to New York. I did something out there, whatever. I come back, and my relationship at this point is like falling apart, and it was bad. Like, it was really bad. My ex-boyfriend and I were super mentally and physically abusive to each other. And I have to take accountability in that. I was a terrible, terrible girlfriend at the time. But I was also still very broken, still fresh out of treatment, and very lost. And so, you know, we were like hitting each other. We were swinging on each other. We were physically fighting. We were arguing every single day, and we were just sleeping together all the time. Like, it was just not a good relationship at all. Very, very, very bad relationship. And so I ended up leaving that relationship. And by leaving that relationship, I mean I cheated and forced the relationship to end because I was too scared to leave. And don't cheat. Don't do it. Like, cheating is so stupid. And I wish that, looking back on it now, like, I had just left the relationship. But I was like freshly 18 and just very stupid and just very broken, very lost, like still heavily using drugs. And my drug use had now, being in this relationship, spiraled even more. I was now taking even more pills. I was doing mushrooms. I was smoking like an eighth of weed a day, like 3-4 blunts straight to the face every single day. And it just continued to get worse and worse and worse because there's a ton of drugs in that industry. They're doing that like boogie shoogie right in your face, and you're just constantly blasted, right? And so everything that you think that you know about the modeling and the entertainment industry, you're correct. You're very correct. If you think that you know something about it, you're probably right. It's just it's a disgusting industry to be in. And so this relationship ends. I'm done with the drugs. Like, I just start focusing on a fitness journey. I start getting more tattoos. I got the 7 chakras tattooed down my spine. I got the Hamsa hand tattooed on my sternum. I got angel numbers tattooed on my thigh. Still very deep in witchcraft, still practicing, like trying to manifest like all these other things for myself. And at this point, I was now kind of like on the border of like, I'm still worshiping the universe and worshiping creation instead of the creator. But sometimes while I was praying, I would say like God instead of the universe. And I was like, whatever, it's one and the same. And so after this relationship, I'm just focusing on myself. I take a lot of time off from dating. I think I took like a full year. And my therapist was like, okay, Alyssa, I think you're ready to get back into the dating world. I'm like, no, scary. No thanks. I don't want to do that. And so, I don't know what came over me, but one day I was just like, whatever, I'm going to do it. So I downloaded Tinder and I had it for 2 days and I swiped on this one man and I just thought he was so attractive, but I was like, ooh, he has face tattoos. I don't know about that, but like he's really attractive. And so I'm like reading his profile. I'm like, okay, it doesn't say that he uses drugs. Like he doesn't use drugs. He's really into cars, whatever. I'm like, okay, he seems like a good man. He just has face tattoos. Like, you know, and if I don't like how the conversation goes, I don't have to hang out with him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to do that. So I'm like, okay, I swipe, and we immediately match. And he immediately messages me, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, this is kind of crazy. He's like, hey, like, you're so beautiful and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're absolutely stunning. I would love to take you out on a date and maybe go to a car meet with you. If you're down, like, I'd just love to take you out and try to get to know you. And I was like, oh, okay, like this conversation's kind of different than most of the other ones, because even just within 2 days you get all those people that are just trying to like smash, you know what I mean? And that's not the vibe at all. So we start talking, and we're talking like every day at this point. We still hadn't met in person, but we were texting. I had deleted Tinder. He had deleted Tinder. I told him, I was like, I'm one of those people that's very serious about relationships. Like my last relationship was already like 2.5 years as a teenager. I'm like, what the heck? Like that was a long relationship, and that was my first relationship. And so I'm like, okay, like I really don't play about relationships because I thought I was going to marry my ex and blah, 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 and this, that, and the third. And it was really stupid. And so, I'm talking to him and I'm like, yeah, this is what I want. Like, I want a family. I want kids. Like, I don't want to have to work if I don't want to. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And he was like, that's great, because that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who wants to be a stay-at-home mom and take care of the house and just let me provide. And this guy was a car salesman at the time, and he wasn't a sleazy car salesman. He was just a chill guy, right? Yeah, so he calls me one day and he's like, hey, this is really embarrassing, but I actually just lost my job and I have nothing to do today. I just finished putting in all of my applications and resumes with all of the other car dealerships in my area. Can I come get you and can we go hang out and I'll take you out to dinner or lunch? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, we could go hang out. That'd be cool. And so he's like, yeah, why don't we just go get some food and then we can, like, just hang out and find something to do. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I get ready. He comes up, drives like an hour and a half, by the way, to come get me because we lived kind of far apart. So he drives an hour and a half. He comes get me. We go out to get lunch. And then I end up going back to his house. And it was really cool. Like, I was like, okay, I really like this guy. Like, he's really nice. And nothing at all was like sexual. It was nothing weird. Like we were just hanging out and really getting to know each other, and it was cool. He was really shy. When we first met. Like when I first got in the car, he was like really shy and didn't know how to talk to me. Whatever. And so we end up starting to date. I go on vacation and we're dating at this point, and when I come back from vacation we move in together, and I'm 19 at this time and he's 25, and so, you know, there's a bit of an age gap, but I'm an adult, and I was like, okay, like I prefer older men anyway because men my age are stupid. Most people aren't smart until they're 25 anyway. And so with everything that I had gone through, I was already like really emotionally mature. And so I was like, yeah, like I'm in therapy, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, like I'm working on myself and blah, 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 still practicing witchcraft at the time. He was an atheist, so he just didn't care. He's like, whatever, I think that stuff is dumb. So like do whatever you're gonna do, but like I don't want anything to do with it. It just looks dumb. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Like I don't care. And so we end up dating for a long time. And then we get married. And bro, I'm still 19. I got married at 19. And so super shortly after we had gotten married, I got pregnant. We had just drastically decided to change our entire lives all at once. And so we were like, okay, Colorado's too expensive. We're packing up and moving to Idaho. So we pack up and move to Idaho. 3 days after we get to Idaho, I find out I'm pregnant. Whew, we had just moved to a whole new state. We didn't know anybody. We didn't know what we were doing, where we were at. Like, all of this is brand new. Oh, and I'm pregnant. Cool. That's great. This is cool. This is cool. This is cool. This is great. My pregnancy was planned, though. We were trying to get pregnant. And I was like, okay, this is just moving really fast. Like, whatever. This is cool. And so I go through my pregnancy. I give birth. I had just graduated from nail school at this point. I'm still practicing witch. And 3 months, no, not even 3 months, like 2.5 months after my daughter was born, I had a dream. And I was co-sleeping. And so I was co-sleeping with my daughter this specific night. And I had this dream where I had left this woman to watch my daughter. And I was like, okay, like I've never seen this woman before, but she was just watching her for some reason. And my husband and I were there. And she drops her little 2.5-month-old body on the floor. And she hits her head and she starts seizing. And now she's hooked up to all of these wires and all of these tubes and like these feeding tubes. And I have no idea. Like, dreams don't make sense a lot of the time, but I have no idea why it happened this way. So she's now hooked up to all of these wires and she's seizing and she's like not gonna live. And so I'm freaking out. Like, freshly postpartum 20-year-old, almost 21-year-old mom. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh. I start calling 911 on my phone. Like, I need help. Trying to find somebody to help. No service. No signal. And so my husband is trying to call, get help, get service, something. Nothing. And this woman just doesn't care. She's like, whatever type of thing. And so I start running outside. I leave my husband to stay with this woman and our daughter. And I'm just running outside. And all of a sudden, everything starts flooding, like rapidly flooding. And before I know it, this water is up to my mid shins, up to my kneecaps, still rising. And so I'm running. And you know, if you go to a coffee shop and they have those like 2 rows of tables and you can walk down the middle, and each one of these tables was full. Every single seat had somebody in it, and every single person in this chair was wearing black. All black. And they all turn around and look at me, and their eyes are red. Cheshire grin on their face all the way up to their ears. Very clearly demons. And I'm just like screaming, somebody help me, somebody help me, somebody help me. And in all of this chaos, in all of this torment that I'm experiencing, like, I was being mentally tormented. There's just Jesus walking right in front of me, like 10 feet in front of me, walking on this water. Just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me. Said it 3 times. Just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me. I woke up screaming, absolutely horrified that I just had this dream that my daughter died. Because at the end of the dream, this woman actually ended up drowning my daughter just to kill her, just put her out of her misery, quote unquote, right? So I woke up screaming, just panicking, like sobbing, just bloody murder screaming out of my sleep. I scare my husband because he thinks something happens to our daughter because, mind you, she's sleeping right next to me. And so I just like explained the dream to him, and I was like, I just saw Jesus. I just saw Jesus. I just saw Jesus. And that was the day that my life changed forever. It was 2 days before we were forced to move back to Colorado. My husband had just lost his job. We had just gotten evicted. We were moving everything out of our tiny 1-bedroom apartment with our brand new daughter. And my life was completely falling apart. I was still addicted to vaping, still addicted to weed. Like, wasn't smoking weed through my pregnancy. But as soon as my daughter was born, of course, I start smoking. I start using again. And so I had just turned 21 at this point, too, because my birthday is October 9th. And we moved November 1st. So I had just turned 21, and all of a sudden, like, I just I didn't want to be a witch anymore. I had so clearly seen Jesus come to me in this dream and save me in this dream. Just call on me, just call on me, just call on me. And I find it really interesting that he told me 3 times. Because in 3 days, he destroyed and rebuilt the entire church in 3 days. So 3 is a pretty important number, right? So it tells me to call on him. And everything changes. Within that span of moving back and staying out in Colorado closer to family, all of my alchemy books, my Wiccan books, my pagan books, my tarot cards, my crystals, my sage, my incense, like everything I was using for seances and spells and rituals and all this stuff, immediately gone. So within that 2 weeks that I had been back in Colorado, all of it went in the trash. Everything that did not glorify Jesus was gone. I did not sit here and question it. I did not sit here and wrestle with it. And my discernment, for whatever reason, grew extremely fast. And I think that that's a testament to being raised in church. I knew of Jesus. So when I had that dream, I knew that was Jesus. I knew that Jesus walked on water, right? And so I ended up trying to find a church. And I went to one pretty close to my house, and it's a mega church, unfortunately. And so I went in, and the worship was great. It was banging because it's a mega church. They have tons of money, and we're in a pretty affluent area, so they have tons of money. And the message was decent. Like, it was cool, whatever. I had been to this church before when I was a kid. But this particular day, the pastor was like, oh, I'm selling my book, and if you can't afford it, we'll give it to you at a friends and family discount. I'm like, okay. Like, my discernment is like, this is not about Jesus. This is about self-gain. I don't want to be here. This is not my church. So I go through and I'm spending time kind of on my own. I'm just listening to worship music more and slowly starting to cut out the secular music. And I ran into one of my friends who was very involved in the church, and she had kind of given me some direction. I was like, yeah, I think I want to have a better relationship with Jesus. And she just kind of explained to me, like, yeah, start praying before meals, cut out secular music, try to find Christian music and things like that. So I go on Spotify and I start trying to find Christian rap, because I don't just want to listen to worship music the whole time. Not realizing at the time that Christian rap is still worship music. It's just a different genre, right? So I start listening to Christian music. I start praying more. And my husband has this friend who was also engaged or dating this one girl who was a Christian, and she came to get her nails done by me because I'm a licensed nail technician. She came to get her nails done. I was like, okay, like just talking about church and listening to worship music and whatever. And she's like, oh, hey, there's this really great church. You should come. We should go on like a double date and go to church and then go get brunch after. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like, let's do that. And so we plan a day. We end up going to church on one Sunday. We get there early. They show up late. Whatever. No big deal. So we walk in together. The only row that's open is the front row. And the pastor comes up to us and he introduces himself and he welcomes us in. And I'm sitting in the front and I'm just singing worship because, again, I was raised in church. I knew all the songs. So I was singing. I had my hands raised. I was just praising Jesus. And we go through this sermon, whatever. I don't even remember exactly what the sermon was about. But this pastor comes up to me afterwards and he just starts talking to me because he had seen that I kind of had an idea of what was going on. And so he's like, hold on, I have something for you. I'm like, oh, okay. So he brings my husband and I a bag, and it has a mug in it with the church name on it. But to me specifically, he also brings me a book that says Finding Your Way Back to God. And I immediately started sobbing. And I was like, this is absolutely where I'm meant to be. This is absolutely what God wants for me. This is absolutely where I need to be, and God is making it very clear that I need to find my way back to him. And so I read the book. I continued going to church, and it wasn't every Sunday, but it was pretty frequent. I think there was only like a couple of Sundays I had missed in there in the 3-month period. And so as we continued going to church, we started building a relationship with this pastor, and we went out to breakfast with him, and he learned more about our testimonies and our stories. And as time goes on, we're now getting involved in the church. I'm now learning how to do the production side of things, where I'm doing the screens and like all the screens that have like the lyrics for the worship songs, and my husband is learning how to control the sound. And so we're learning how to like be kind of like the backbone of the church. And as we're doing that, I told them that I was very interested in worship. And so a little bit of time goes on where I end up becoming a worship leader on the team, and I start serving. Throughout the next, I'd say 4 months, I had started getting a serious conviction about my smoking habits. And that's where this journey really, really started for me, because 43 days ago, I quit smoking weed and posted it on Instagram. And that video went viral. And my account grew insanely fast. I started getting a lot of eyes on me, and other Christians were like, oh my gosh, like this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm going through. And so I continued posting, and I continued fixing my eyes on Jesus. I continued to grow, and I continued to stay rooted in the Word. I continued to pray. I continued to keep my eyes fixed on Jesus. And that's where the journey started. That's where God was really starting to work on my life. And once I quit, I realized that God was calling me away from these things because this new season needed all of me, not just part of me. It needed all of me. And that's how we get here today. That's how we're led here to my podcast, because God had his fingerprints in it the entire time. From the moment we walked away from church to the day that my dad died, to the day that I went into and left treatment, from the day that I would spit on his name as a practicing witch, to the day that I had a prophetic dream and Jesus saved me, to the day that we found our home church, and the day that my husband gave his life to Jesus after I gave my life to Jesus, and my husband and I getting baptized together on Mother's Day. God had his fingerprints in it all. And it just goes to show that no matter how far gone you feel like you are, no matter how many times you mess up, no matter how many times you stumble and fall and backslide and spit on God's name and all these different things, no matter how far gone you think you are, no matter how much you think you've messed up, God will always bring you back. God will always leave the 99 to get to the one. God will always quietly knock on your door. And if he's knocking, you better answer, because his plans for our life are much better than any plan that we may have for our own. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you. No plan for evil, but plans for a hope and a future. And through all of my evil ways, through my wicked heart, through my drug addiction, through my many attempts to take my life, God was there the whole time. God was there the entire time, and just knew that there was something more, because he wrote out the blueprint before I was even born. He knew everything that was going to happen before I was even born, before I was even a thought. He knew. And so it's just a comfort to know that God will always know. God will always know. He will always see. He will always hear. He will always be. He will always be. And I just wanted to finally share my testimony after the amount of comments that I've gotten about it, because I've gotten quite a few. So here it is. Here's my testimony. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to my story, hearing my testimony. Glory be to God, because I should have died a long time ago. I should have died a long time ago. We really should. And glory be to God. He left the 99 to come get me. He left the 99 to come save me. A practicing witch who spit on his name, who wanted nothing to do with him. He came and saved me. So yeah. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus, for dying on the cross and saving me from my sins. Thank you for thinking about me on the cross when you died, and knowing that one day I would step away and I would come right back, because my mom was a prayer warrior. I thank God that my mom was a prayer warrior, because she raised me up in the way that I should go, and I came back. She really did. So as we close out, I would just like to pray. So if you would bow your head and close your eyes and pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this platform to be able to glorify you and to be able to speak your name and show everybody that no matter how far gone that you think you are, you can always find your way back, and God will always bring you back. And Father, I'm just so thankful that you sent your son, your one and only son, to die on the cross to save us from our sins and to drastically change my life and hopefully change others' lives through my testimony. God, thank you for today. Thank you for everybody who is listening. And Father God, I just pray that this podcast finds exactly who it needs to find. And only you know who that is. And only you can make that happen. God, just thank you for the ways that you love me, the way that you show mercy, the way that you show grace. No matter how many times we fall, you will always be there to catch us. No matter how many times we stumble, you know that you will pick us up again, and we know the way back home. Lord, thank you for being so faithful and for always showing us your kindness. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you next week.